It's finally here, our first ever PlayArt Sky from Rebirth. Wait, hold on. It's this one, right? Yeah, Rebirth, but... were they advertising the Rebirth one on the remake box, or...? Well... here it is. Let's look at the most interesting thing first, the new face. And wow, okay, that is interesting, because on all the pictures that I've ever seen of this, it looks like he's smiling. Like he's smiling kind of like awkwardly as he's, you know, fighting or something. But this looks more like he's angry. In fact, this is pretty accurate to how Cloud looks after Wedge gets bit in the ass in Remake. I'm definitely gonna be using this, because this is pretty much the only unique thing about this figure, I think, but I guess we'll see. Alright. The obvious thing to point out is that, with the exception of the new face, the sculpt of this is exactly the same for all of these figures. This figure, this is the first version that was ever created, was announced and released soon after the first remake trailer. That was in 2015. And the year now is 2025. So this body, like 99% of this figure that I just bought, full price, brand new, is 10 years old. Every other figure since then has improved. Like, these joints are really old-fashioned. PlayArt Sky doesn't really do this anymore. This one is just loose, it's just hanging. When I'm pretty sure that all the others that has shoulder armor actually just has joints on the actual armor. And this is not necessarily a bad figure. Like, if you don't have any of these yet, I probably, looking at them now and not really judging the limited edition weapon or the limited edition color, that one is pretty good too, but I would probably recommend this one because of the additional face. And it's a pretty good face. I must admit, it is a pretty good face. But why is it a problem if this sculpt is 10 years old? Like, if it's not broke, don't fix it, you know? And I would agree with that if it wasn't for the fact that this has always been broke, as it were. This sculpt is not actually based on anything from the actual game, except for this head sculpt specifically, because that came later. This is from version 2, as you can see with that one. These ones have different faces and different hair sculpts. But if you compare this thing to the in-game model of Cloud, like, almost everything is wrong. The shape of his pants are wrong. However, the SAC PlayArt Skies that came out last year, they got the pants exactly right. So why does Zack get the upgrade, but you don't transfer that over to this figure? And I remember looking at that SAC figure being like, oh, I can't wait to see the next, you know, Cloud PlayArt Sky, because it's probably gonna be pretty good. But who knows, maybe they're saving the new sculpt for the PlayArt's shin of Cloud, which I'm sure will be coming one day. The belt is also too squished down. It's too short. It almost doesn't go up here in the front. I'm pretty sure this thing is also a little bit too big, but these bolts are definitely too big. When you compare this to a more accurate model, these look ridiculous. And how is that not something that you could fix? Come on, guys. You could easily have swapped out these bolts, clearly. Another thing that is actually kind of ridiculous, you'll notice this bangle thing that he has, it's the same on all of these, the shape at least. The paint job is different all over the limited color version, and they all have slightly different colors, which I think is cool, obviously. As a collector, I think it's cool to have like slightly different variations of things. But ever since 2015, I forget, 2021 or something, and 2025, it has always been wrong, and they have never bothered to correct this thing. And at first, I actually just thought, without checking, I was like, well, that's clearly just how it looked in the announcement trailer, and then they upgraded his design, and it's cool that we have this representation of this trailer, blah, blah, blah. That was the thinking that I had and the justification I had for it being wrong. But then I actually went back and looked at the trailer, and it doesn't look like this. And for the longest time, I thought that it had never looked like this, and that whoever sculpted this just made this up. But then I played Crisis Core Reunion, and I'd seen all the cutscenes and stuff, and I knew the story of Crisis Core, obviously, but I have never really been this obsessed with Cloud's design and the 3D models and stuff in the game, so I was paying closer attention this time to the actual designs. And that's when I noticed, at the end of Crisis Core, when we see Cloud on the train, that's when he has this. That's the only time, as far as I know, that Cloud has ever had this specific design, with one bigger ring and one smaller ring. You could argue that that is from the original, but in the original, technically, they're both the same size, or at least very similar sizes. So that's pretty interesting. Does that indicate that this is based on Cloud's CGI model from Crisis Core? It's possible. It's possible, at least the body. But alright, the sword. This I actually quite like. You might think, well, what are you excited about? You have two Buster Swords with two different colors on it already. But look at the size of this sword, right? It looks fairly accurate until you see this. That is a huge difference. This figure technically comes with the same Buster Sword. I'm pretty sure like they're the same, but I do like it. There's rust in all the grooves, if you can see that. The orange, brown, red color that they've used really pops and it looks super cool. And also the dry brushing that they've used here is only at the edge, so it looks like you've actually been cutting with it and you've been hitting stuff with the edge. But the handle is still identical to the original one. Let me show you the color difference for all of these. The first thing that actually popped out to me when I opened this, the blue on his sweater, it's a lot more saturated. Here it looks almost just black and gray, and it is definitely still blue, but it is a lot more like just black. And it looks exactly the same as the pants. But here there's clearly a difference between the chest piece and the pants, but the pants between these two are more or less identical. Just for fun, let me compare the limited color version. In many ways, this is my favorite because it is so unique. Every color that they could change is something that they did change. The pauldron on this limited color version is silver, and then the bolts are blue. Same with down here, the bolts here are blue as well. The straps on the belts are really purple and so on, as well as the handle of the sword being red instead of this beige that we got with the other one. So for a long time, this was the definite version of this figure that you should be getting. And I actually highly recommend that one still. It's a cool piece to have. And if we exclude the head sculpt, that one is more or less identical to this one. I think this is a bit more matte. It's not as shiny, which is interesting. And there he is with the other face on. I did have to use some hot water to get it on. And I'm actually really happy with the pose that I chose for him. But as I was posing him, I was reminded of a thing. One thing that kind of makes it such a shame that this figure is so outdated now is the huge gap. I think it shows up pretty well here. You see that? The stomach and the chest doesn't really line up ever. Look at this huge gap right here. And it's like that for all of them. Even the new one, even though I've hidden it behind this arm. But look at that. Look at that. That is shameful. That huge gap right there. Same with this one. Maybe this is where you can see it the most. That is a shame. It's things like that that one would hope would be fixed with a re-release. When people say that, oh, for the re-release of the Bring Arts, they've actually fixed Cloud's hips and stuff. I'm like, I doubt it. I just think you got lucky because all of these versions have the same issue with the gaps and stuff. So, but yeah, I'm surprisingly more happy with this than I thought I would be. But the fact that I'm so used to this and the color of that and the face of that and this weapon and so on actually made this feel a bit new. And obviously from my perspective as a collector, getting a different version of the same thing is exciting for me. If they, for whatever reason, like released this same figure again, but made it gold and was like, this is Cloud Play Arts Kai from Rebirth Gold Edition, I would be one of the suckers who would just buy that in a heartbeat and be super excited about it. So, am I the best person to judge when it comes to stuff like this? No, absolutely not. But okay, I think it's time to try to find some space for this guy in my collection. And I was able to squeeze it in right about here. And incredibly, this is my Cloud figure number 50. Or technically it's number 51, but the other one is still in the box and I haven't opened it yet, and I don't know when I'm gonna have time for that because I'm planning on making a video with that one. And number 52 is already on its way to my house as we speak. It's hard to keep up, but I'm trying. I'm hanging in there. And yes, 50 is a big number even in my collection. Like the closest one in second place is Sephiroth with 35. And for him, I'm counting, all of these as 6 individual figures. So that just goes to show how big the number 50 really is. And before you even ask, I'm not going to try it and I haven't tried it, but I'm willing to say yes, you can. And you can even do
this and this and that and even this. I'm an adult.
And lastly, in an effort to try to be more critical, even of the stuff that I like, there's something weird going on with both of the hair pieces on the new figure. There's some weird flashing right here that isn't visible on any of the others. And also, the top part of his hair is attached properly. It's just not glued on at the edges, so you can see the seam a lot more clearly on the new hair pieces than you can on the old hair piece. So there you go. Now I've pointed that out.